Well, today we have one of the most intense scenes in the Old Testament. And we're going to talk about it in a second. We're going to look at the whole details. We're going to see some powerful realities of it. This is one of the major events in the Old Testament. It is such a major event. It is listed in the genealogy, which you hear on December 17th every year, which is the genealogy that traces Adam all the way to Joseph. So this is the scene. We're going to be looking at that today. Also, at the same time, I just thought I'd mention as a sidelight, I don't know if I still have it here. I don't. So let me explain what I'm talking about here as I bring this up. I don't use theme music. We have the AI version of the rap at the end, but I wanted to do a show where we get to listen to theme music. We listen to songs. We talk about them, either a song that is Catholic or not, or whatever the case may be. And I've actually tried to get Canção Nova to let me use some of their songs, and it hasn't gone through yet. And so I looked up, how do I get a license to play music on my podcast? And basically, the short answer is, if you want to get a license, you have to negotiate with the music publishers and the record label of the performers. And unless you do that, you can forget it. So you have to do this on your own. And this is so unbelievably absurd. This is one of the issues with the music industry where they just make it intensely difficult in order to negotiate. And if I were to play a song on the podcast and maybe talk about it, would cost at least $100. So I just want to let you know. I really think sometimes the music industry goes way over the edge, and I think this is one classic example. That's why I don't use any music. And they say, well, you can use, public domain music. You can get certain, like Audio Jungle will let you have themes. No, but I'm looking for the actual songs and be able to talk about it. Can't do it. So I am sorry for all of that. Let's go into what we're looking at today. This is one of the most intense scenes in the Bible. We're going to go to 2 Kings 24, and we're going to look at this powerful story beginning in chapter 8. So let us head over, if you get a Bible with you, 2 Kings 24. As you know, we go into the Catholic public domain version. Joachim was 18 years old. And of course, being 18 in their time is a lot older than being an 18 in our time, but we'll say it. When he had begun to reign, and he reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. The name of his mother was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan from Jerusalem. And in his 3 months he did evil before the Lord in accord with all that his father had done. At that time, the servants of Nebuchadnezzar, it's very easy to mispronounce that word, the king of Babylon ascended against Jerusalem, and the city was encircled with fortifications. Okay, now you get the scene. He's been a king for three months. He's doing evil in the sight of the Lord. The Lord has been warning Judah forever, saying, you've got to change your ways. They did, but now they reverted back. And now we see the emperor of Babylon, this vicious king, Nebuchadnezzar, and he is coming in to Jerusalem. And Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, went to the city with his servants so that he might fight against it. And Joachim, the king of Judah, went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and the leaders and his eunuchs. And the king of Babylon received him in the 8th year of his reign. And he took from there all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the house of the king. And he cut up all the gold vessels which Solomon the king of Israel had made for the temple of the Lord, in accord with the word of the Lord. And he carried away all of Jerusalem and all of the leaders and all the strong men of the army, 10,000, into captivity with every artisan and craftsman. And no one was left behind except the poor among the people of the land. They were called the diaspora. So pretty much all the movers and shakers, everyone, plus everything that was possible, the king of Babylon captured and brought to Babylon. And the only thing that was left, or the only people that were left, were the very, very poor. If you've ever seen some science fiction movies of the abandoned village and now there's only just a few people there and they talk about everyone else is dead because of there you go. That's a scene right out of it. Although people are slaved, not dead, but pretty much the same thing. All these people have been captured and brought into Babylon, and Judah is left at waste. Why? Because they turned from the Lord. Who is the king of Babylon serving, even though he wouldn't admit it? He's serving the Lord. And why? Because they turned from the Lord. And what is the most serious sin they committed? Idolatry. And so there you have. And he carried away Jehoiakim, as we saw, and led into captivity the judges of the land from Jerusalem to Babylon, and all the robust men, 7,000, and the artisans and the craftsmen, 1,000, all who were strong men and fit for war. And the king of Babylon led them away as captives into Babylon. And he appointed Mattaniah his uncle in his place, and he imposed the name of Zedekiah upon him. And Zedekiah had 21 years of life when he had begun to reign, and he reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. The name of his mother, Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah from Libnah, not the Jeremiah the prophet. And there you have. And he did evil before the Lord in accord with that Joachim had done, but he was working for the king of Babylon. For the Lord was angry against Jerusalem and against Judah until he cast them away from his face. And so Zedekiah withdrew from the king of Babylon. And there you go. This was the Babylonian exile. As I said, this is one of the major events. This is how it happened. It was Babylon came in, took all the movers and shakers, and as you notice, the artisans and craftsmen. I mean, how many times you see on TV, right? You see on TV, they're bringing in the soldiers and the artisans. Well, it's fascinating. But this is the way they looked at it. You know, these are the people. And by the way, as a former Navy sailor, of course, what would be the craftsmen that would come in with a military operation? Say, for example, it was the Navy, would be the Seabees, the construction battalion, the Seabees. So, in any case, there you have. This is the total destruction of Judah. This is what the king of Babylon does. He completely destroys Judah. He takes it over. Why? He warned them and warned them and warned them. They turned from the Lord. They sought the Lord. They sought idolatry. Their idolatry included human sacrifice, mostly child sacrifice. It included a lot of issues. A lot was going on that they were doing. They were turning from the Lord, and the Lord said, enough. And there you go. And so this is an important thing. And it's also an important thing for us to keep in mind, because people say that our country is blessed by the Lord. Well, that has a blessing and curse that goes with it. It's blessed by the Lord, but you have to respond to the Lord appropriately. And if you don't, then the Lord can curse the land. And so you want to be careful of that. And maybe that's one of the issues that's going on right now in our country, when we clearly see a kind of invasion going along, especially with some of these elections. I was listening to Katz and Crosby on WABC out of New York, and one of the things they were saying is that not to get political, but the Democratic Party does not exist anymore, and it has been replaced by the Democratic Socialists of America, who are not Democrats. That's one of the things they said. They are not Democrats. So and they are coming in to take over our country. So that's one of the things that you are looking at, and they're using the electoral process to do that. But why could the Lord allow that to happen? Look at the way the people have turned away from the Lord, especially look at the issue of child sacrifice. So we see that going on as far as in the Old Testament. We see that going on. We see that everyone is there saying God doesn't count anymore. We've got everything going on our own. And then we see this disaster happen, kind of thinking, we'll talk about that in the second half, kind of thinking that in a different way. We're seeing that go on, and we're recognizing that incredibly powerful reality that is happening, that the king of Judah has no protection from the Lord, and his country is wiped out. God does not abandon Judah. Remember, Judah is conquered by Babylon, but unlike Israel, which didn't exist for another 2,800 years after it was conquered by Assyria, Judah returns to existence after 40 years. And so we're going to be talking about that in the future. But you see, all of this is going on. And why does it happen? Because they abandon the Lord, and the Lord says no. And why does he say no? Because when you abandon the Lord, you walk down destructive paths. And this is one of the things that's going on. We're going to be back on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast, and we don't use music because the copyright system is so absolutely crazy. But anyway, don't forget to subscribe and to like. Have you ever wanted to read the Bible but didn't know which readings to check out? Well, how about looking at the Church's daily readings? You can find them at the website of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Just go to bible.usccb.org and click on the date that pops up on that page. There are other options on that page as well. That is bible.usccb.org, and click on the date and you will see the daily readings for your own prayer and study of the Bible. This is a prayerful tip from St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media, patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer, previews of upcoming podcasts, previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. And so we're seeing this real powerful reality that happens where the people turn from the Lord, and their whole idea is, well, what's going to happen to us? It's not going to make any difference. The Lord isn't, we've stopped listening to the Lord the whole bit. And look what happens. Disaster goes on. Why? There is a mission that the Jews have been called to accomplish. And if they don't, if they start to veer from that mission, the Lord is going to step in and say, no, you better get back to it. And if you don't, I will take care of this, and it won't be pretty. And this is exactly what we see. Now, this is one of many accounts in the Bible of what happened, and that is the nicest account. They're pretty graphic, what actually happened, and I didn't want to get into that. And I said, well, good, we don't get into the graphic nature. Trust me, it was not a good experience. So we're looking at that. But now, if we're looking at the way our country is, we're seeing the Great Division, we're seeing a lot of issues. Part of that is, you got to remember, let me go back to what you all know. I am a baby boomer. Well, I grew up when everyone... there was a unity. We were all together as Americans. We may have disagreed with each other, but we're all together as Americans. We're all together. We're united. We basically believe in the same things as far as the United States goes. And there was a religious unity there where everyone could talk about God and no one would get upset. Now, all that started to change very slightly in around 1964. If I have that right, let me see, I'm 58, maybe 66. When my second grade teacher came in and she was crying her eyes out. And we said, well, what's wrong? And she said that it was just passed by the United States Supreme Court that we could no longer pray in schools. Now, I'm not going to get into this whole thing, we need to get prayer back in schools. No, what you need is that common unity that brings us all together. We're all united in Christ. And when you have that common unity that brings us together, or at least in faith, at least in God, then we become united, and then we become united as a country. But when you break all that up, then you lose the unity. And with the unity, you get people turning against each other with the lack of unity. Don't forget, how does a small country take over a large country? Getting the people against each other. And that's one of the things we're seeing. That's one of the ways people are seeking to conquer our country, by getting people to turn away from each other, which is one of the important things that we do. I'm not here to get people to reverse that. I'm here to get people to understand what is our role as Catholics during this time. And our role as Catholics is not to get involved in that whole dispute, but our role as Catholics is to be signs and symbols of the presence of God, even at a time like this. That's our role. And that's why we have to pray, and that's why prayer is so important. I do believe that some of what you're seeing in our country is the hand of God saying, fine, if that's the way you want to be, we're going to move in this way to kind of lead you to understand that you are not God. And I really think that's one of the things that's happening. And we're starting to see some of the issues that are popping up in our country because people have chosen to walk a different path. We're seeing the allegations against Dr. Anthony Fauci, and we're seeing the allegations in his working with different government agencies, and we're seeing all that and saying, how could that be? Granted, this kind of stuff has been going on the whole history of the country, but it was less blatant than it was during the time of COVID. So we're looking at some of those things. We're looking at, and of course, my own experience of enduring these Soviet-era style protests with the other parishioners back in the aughts when everyone was following the teachings of Saul Alinsky. If you wanted to bring down the church, use her sins against you. Of course, that was when the Boston Globe began the priest abuse crisis, which was a terrible thing. It was an awful thing. And, a lot of people don't realize that it was intensely painful for the good priests, which is something that the Catholic media never gets. It's one of the reasons why I don't like the Catholic media, including a certain Catholic publishing house from Indiana. That's one of the reasons, because they don't get how much the good priests have been painfully hurt during this. As well, but one of the good things being, especially I can tell people my own experience, how painful and how broken people have left me, is now I understand what the victims went through. And they're trying to say, hey, we have a problem here, and nobody listened. And I can see that. But these kind of things that we're seeing, and now we're seeing the way, and I called this 25 years ago. I said 25 years ago when this crisis was happening, the Lord is actually strengthening his church, is purifying his church, because difficult times will be coming. I said signs are already there, and now we're there. And now our role is to be what is known as a holy church, because we have to be the signs to the people who are witnessing this stuff going on in our country and saying what's going on. And we have to be there as signs of the presence of Christ. And we can't do that if we're fighting among ourselves. I firmly believe there is foreign money being poured into the Latin Mass movement. Not entirely, but I think some of the more intense with rhetoric, and some of the more wayward calling down the Pope. And I don't know if they're receiving foreign money. They may be receiving foreign money and may not know it. That's one of the old tricks, is the money is sent, from a government to one agency to another, and by the time it reaches the recipient, They don't know where it's coming from. I mean, eventually maybe U.S. government can trace back to, oh, look at this, it's coming from whatever country. But I'm pretty sure that could be going on. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure that could be. Well, either you're sure or you're on. It's very possible that money could be being funded into some of these movements that are trying to lead people away from the Pope. They're trying to tell people that the Pope is wrong and everything else, and trying to lead people to divide the church because they want to also silence the church. I called that 25 years ago. I said the people are trying to stage a coup of our church, and when they're done trying to do this, which they failed, they're going to try to stage a coup of the country, which is exactly what's going on. And so we're looking at that. But what is our role during this? Our role during this is to be what we're always called to be, focused on Christ and signs of the presence of Christ, even in the midst of difficulty, because that's our role. Our role is not to take sides except for the side of Christ. Obviously, if you want to support the country, but you want to do it in the way that Christ would call you to do. You know how much, there's a lot of discussion about the January 6th and a lot of issues on January 6th, but my position is no one should have been there in the first place. And certainly, if you're going to live your faith and seek to be a good Christian and a good Catholic, and you go to some kind of a rally, and at the rally, there was a gallows for the then vice president, you know you are not in the right place. You don't belong there, and leave. And this is it, because we have to be signs and symbols of the presence of God. That's our call. That's our baptismal call. We have to live it, and we have to act it, and we have to be it. And we can't do that if we're not praying, and we can't do that if we're not seeking to do the will of God. That's what we've got to do. We've got to be it, we've got to act it, we've got to pray it. And we've got to do that. That's our role. Remember, being Catholic is not, well, I'm good enough as it is, I don't need to go to church. No, being Catholic is going to understand that you need to be in prayer, because as St. Paul says in Ephesians, we're called to draw our strength from the Lord and his mighty power. And that strength is strength to be signs and symbols of the presence of God to people who may be all caught up in a lot of this division and trying to look for a way out. And we are the church in order to do that. And, there's my rant for today. How's that? We're going to be back right after this. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. Subscribe and like. Did you know that Catholic TV offers free apps for both Android and iOS users? Visit the website catholictv.com or your app store to download this faith resource to your device. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. Well, our story continues tomorrow. And remember I said this was the kind of the nicer version? Well, tomorrow we see part 2, and it's not nice at all. It's pretty intense. This would be definitely R-rated for violence if it was a movie, and maybe even NC-17 for violence. I'm not sure about that, but it's pretty intense. That's coming up tomorrow. It's the next stop on the Babylon making complete its destruction of Judah, because the people turned away from the Lord. In the meantime, subscribe and like and let people know that you're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We will see you tomorrow. Have a blessed day.
Yeah. You know the real is back. Father Carr Chaplain from the city of champions, dropping daily reflections coming straight from the field. The raw truth revealed for the strong-willed. It's the Greatest Act of Defiance podcast with your host Father Carr, a message built to last. The Greatest Act of Defiance podcast. That's right, the Greatest Act of Defiance. Word up. Word up. Word up. Word up.
The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.